Well, within a couple of days of the Prime Minister alerting people across the country of the dangers of deep fakes online, the government is now in the process of starting to look very seriously into this issue, issuing guidelines to various intermediaries, and in a finite period of time, it is hoped that the threat of deep fakes would actually no longer exist in our system. Joined now by a special guest, the Minister Rajeev Chandrasekhar. Thanks very much, Mr. Chandrasekhar, for being with us. Before we look at what the government is now doing, could you briefly tell us about the nature of the threat that we face?
Look, we have, and the Honorable Prime Minister has for some years now been talking about how some actors are, in a sense, misusing the internet. Misinformation is clearly one very good example of that. And then there are other elements of criminality like CSAM, insightful content and so on and so forth, for which way back in October 2022, we laid out a framework where 12 specific areas were clearly communicated as legally an obligation on the part of platforms that content relating to these 12 areas will not be carried by their platforms. And misinformation was one of them. And deep fakes, Vishnu, is really about misinformation marrying AI, powered by AI, and becoming an even more of a potent force to disrupt and to mislead and to create chaos and confusion at a scale and of a type that is deeply detrimental. So deep fakes in a very simple, basic way is misinformation, which is powered by or enhanced by AI and takes predominantly the video form, making it even more potent because video consumption, as you know, today is the preferred choice by consumers on the internet.
So, Minister, what have the various companies that you've spoken to said? Firstly, from a technology standpoint, can they do this within a finite period of time, take down deep fakes?
So we've approached it differently, Vishnu. We are not making this about a conversation about technology, etc., etc. We are certainly saying that we are, in a sense, reminding platforms today, and we have reminded platforms, that the rules and the law as they are today, and we can have many conversations about new regulations and the new law and so on and so forth. And those conversations are necessary because our law, as you know, is 22 years old. And therefore, there is space for a discourse and discussion on the new law. But most importantly, under the current law and the current act, platforms are obliged to comply with this requirement of them to not carry misinformation, A. B, if they do carry misinformation or some of the users do post misinformation, when that misinformation is pointed out to them, they have an obligation to take it off or label it as misinformation. Now, it is clear that while there has been considerable progress in many areas of safety and trust on the internet, and many platforms have done many good things to clean up their platforms, there still remains a lot to be done, especially in the wake of our Honorable Prime Minister alerting everybody to the danger of deepfakes. And today we have laid down some areas where the platforms have certainly lagged in compliance with the law. We have pointed out, for example, that they are not doing enough to caution their own users via their guidelines and via their terms and conditions that these are the 12 areas that users of a platform must not post content on. So at a very basic level, some platforms have not even aligned their terms of use and user guidelines or user contracts to be consistent with the law of the land and the IT rules and the 12 exceptional no-go areas of content for users on these platforms.
How have the intermediaries responded?
No, I think the first question was a very simple question. Are you aware, cognizant of the fact that there is an obligation for you to not allow deep fakes? Do you think there's a shortcoming in the law or the rules as they are? And to a platform, all of them said, no, we understand Rule 31B5 as absolutely dealing with deep fakes, and that we agree that we have to do more in terms of complying with Rule 31B5. Which essentially prohibits them from carrying deepfakes on their platform. And we have talked about how they will do this. I have certainly insisted with them today that they must harmonize and they must let their consumers know, their users know, that their user terms has been completely harmonized with the IT rules and the IT law, so that there is no ambiguity in the mind of any user that a platform is discouraging them from and will, in a sense, debar them if they violate those 12 conditions that are part of the law and therefore part of the conditions of use of these platforms. So they have agreed. We will meet in a week's time to review if their terms of use are aligned to the IT rules and the IT law, IT Act. And we have made it very clear that we intend to expect 100% compliance of these of the law across the board 100% of the time, and that a Rule 7 officer will be notified by the ministry, and a platform be created where users who are aggrieved by the non-compliance of platforms with the law can approach the government, and the government will, the Rule 7 officer will invoke Rule 7, which will remove the safe harbor and the immunity that they enjoy under the Act currently. And the aggrieved party and the platform will go to the courts and essentially explore what the adjudication of the courts are. Because in many cases, for example, deepfakes fall afoul of the criminal law. Under IPC, under Section 469, impersonation is a criminal is a criminally punishable violation. So the platforms have been cautioned on this, and I think the platforms have heard the message loud and clear today, and our message that we expect 100% compliance on all this, on these issues of no-go and prohibited areas immediately.
Just a final question. The suggestion of the Prime Minister a couple of days back was that if there was a deep fake, then there would be a banner or an alert telling viewers that this is a deep fake. Then, of course, there's the entire issue of all deep fakes, irrespective of the context, need to be pulled down. I'm just trying to understand, what is the government's position?
Our position is very simple. Let me just lay out the principles for you, Vishnu. We have very early on, almost a year and a half ago, in October of 2022, said that we recognize the concept of user harms. And we have laid down 12 types of harms that platforms must not, and users of platforms must not inflict on other users. And misinformation, we are basically leaving it to the platform either to label it as misinformation or to take it down. But certainly misinformation and deep fakes must not masquerade as the truth, must not compromise the safety and trust expectation that users have from the platform. That is our ask from the platforms today. And the Honorable Prime Minister is right. If people are putting even a satirical deep fake, let us say about you and me having a conversation, which both of us shrug off as something funny, but the platforms still have an obligation to label it as a fake, so that nobody is misled or misled into believing that this is something that is the truth. The harm that we believe will come from the fake or the deep fakes masquerading as the truth is what the platforms have to mitigate with their various tools and various resources that they command.
All right, Rajeev Chandrasekhar, thank you very much for spelling that out for us and explaining how deep fakes will not be tolerated, and that intermediaries have been told that misinformation, which is what deep fakes essentially are, will not be tolerated as far as Indian IT rules are concerned. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.